Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Elting here with you just to help you out on question number 2 on the homework. I just want to talk about this whole domain and range thing as it applies to intervals. Interval is a fancy word for a range. Now, not range in the sense of like range here. I mean range in the sense of um, the lowest and highest amounts. So, for example, usually when the weathermen predict snowfall, it's usually listed as a range. We could get anywhere from 1 to 3 inches of snow, right? Um, Fantastic. Now, we're going to do the same thing here on this graph. We're just going to list the range and the domain literally by, what points do they fall between. So the domain, as you know, is the x-axis. So this curve starts at -4. It ends at -4. So if I were to write the domain, I would usually write my d. Now in this case, I have domain there already. So, and then in parentheses, rather than indices, rather than the curly brackets now, which is what we used before, now we're going to use parentheses, and we're going to say -4 all the way. It starts there at -4 all the way to 4. And this just tells your reader that this curve starts at -4 on the x-axis and ends at +4 on the x-axis. Same thing with the range, except now, obviously, we're looking at our y's. We start there at -1. We end at 3. And in parentheses, I'm going to write that. -1 to 3. And that's it. It's not very hard. I think it's easier even than listing all of the numbers for points. If I had a bunch of points on here instead, then obviously you need to find all of the x-coordinates of every single one, and that can take a lot of time. You have to list all of those out in your domain. But when it's a curve, you just need to find the endpoints. Where does it begin? Where does it end? Side to side, and up and down. If that's all you need, then you're welcome to stop this video, but I want to take it a step further. There is actually some notation that comes with this. Because this open circle means something. It actually means that this curve goes all the way up until -4, but it doesn't include it. So when you think about that, this curve goes all the way up to -3.999999999, on and on, but not quite -4. It just doesn't include -4. And I have to have a way to show that. So remember before that we're not using these indices anymore? Well, we actually have two things we're going to use now. So I'm going to go ahead and erase my -4 and 4 and my parentheses around 1 and 3, and instead I'm going to replace them with one of two things. Parentheses are only used for things that are what we call open. And you'll never guess what these guys are. They're open, right? There's an empty space. And that just means that it goes until that point, but it doesn't include it. So in this case, that's true with this curve. It goes to -4, but it doesn't include it. It's also true for +4. So I was actually right before when I used parentheses. But now there is another symbol. And this symbol is the regular old square bracket. And this is what we would call a closed endpoint. Now, a closed endpoint, think of a door. You shut the door. You're trapped inside, okay, when you shut your door. So it includes things that are inside that bracket. So when I measured the range earlier, I was going from -1 down here up to 3 up here. -1 doesn't have an open circle on it. It's actually just a solid point. If I were to plot a point here, it would be solid because the line is solid there. So that actually means that we are including -1 in our range. It's closed like a door. So I'm going to use that. Whereas the top of this ends at both of these. Now here's the interesting part. What if one of these was filled in and the other was not? Well, if one of them is filled in, then it is still closed. That point is defined But in this case, we actually have neither of them filled in. They're both open at the top. So at the point 3 on the y-axis, we have no point. So again, this is just open. The door is not shut, it's left open, and there you go. That's how you list these domain and ranges. The last thing on your homework here, it asks whether this is a function. Hopefully you know the vertical line test by now. In this case, number 2, this is not a function. You draw a vertical line and only pass through one time. Please feel free to email me or use the homework question box on the course website. Remember that's www.slopedude.weebly.com. Thanks, guys, and have a wonderful night. See you tomorrow.